Hi, everybody. I'm Alyce-Kay Reckelhouse from Threshold of Hineni and the Widow Reckelhouse. And this is going to be kind of a different kind of video. I'm not sure if I'm going to do more than just this one. I kind of want to, but we'll just see how it goes and how I feel and everything. So a couple of years ago, after Bill died, starting actually a couple days after he died, I started making a series of videos of what I was going through and feeling and how I was dealing with and stuff. And that ended up being really good for me because it was a good way to, it was kind of therapeutic, you know, to be able to talk about it with people, but not having somebody here that I was talking to, if that makes any sense. And then also I found that it helped a lot of other people. So that was really good. And Bill and I, oh gosh, I think it was back in like 2016 or maybe even 2015, we made a series of videos about how we met and how we ended up getting married and everything. So there are those two things, but there are some of our experiences that we haven't really recorded, or I haven't recorded. And I just kind of, I want to combine factors from both of those. I want to be able to share those with other people, but I also think it'll help me to talk through them. And I want to have a record of it. Sadly, as the years go by, I think that, you know, my memories may fade some. I'm never going to forget Bill. I will always love him, even if I remarry or something, which I don't know if I'm going to do or not. But memories fade. And so I just want to kind of have those memories to share with other people and to remember for myself. And so anyway, so this is November 7th, 2021. So I saw a memory that came up in my Facebook that made me think of doing this. And that was that I was getting ready to go meet Bill for the very first time in 2014. So 7 years ago, we had been communicating online and by phone and occasionally on Skype at that point for 5.5 months. Well, 5.5 months before we got married. So it was like the beginning of June 6th. And we had known that we wanted to get married since like the last half of June. And, but we had decided not to meet yet. And at first, that wasn't what we were planning to do. We were trying to figure out sometime when we could get together. Bill was going to fly to some city in the US and fly me there, and we would spend a weekend together getting to know each other. And we kind of thought we might do that like on a monthly basis or something to get to know each other. But we both were really busy and it was hard to find times. And I had my kids and everything. And so I had 2 kids at that point. And so it was, well, and actually I only had Kat for a short time. It was mostly John, my son, and he was 16. So it was difficult trying to find the opportunity to get together. And then, and of course, we really wanted to get together, especially because we had already decided that we knew we wanted to be married. We knew that God was bringing us together to be married. And so at one point, Bill just finally said, you know what, I've been thinking about it. And maybe the reason that we're having such a hard time getting together is because we shouldn't get together. And my heart sunk because I thought, oh my gosh, he's changed his mind. And he was like this really wonderful, wonderful man that I knew was too good for me, you know? And so it didn't really, it kind of surprised me, but it didn't surprise me that he lost interest. But it turned out that it wasn't that at all. It was he very wisely, I think, thought that it would be best for us to do most of our courtship away from each other, on the phone, through emails, through text messages, on Skype occasionally. But he said, you know, one thing that happens when you start getting together is you start getting physical, and that gets in the way of actually really getting to know each other. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is what I've wanted for so long. I was really, when I was homeschooling, I loved the whole courtship movement and everything. And so this was kind of like that. And so we decided, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to really, really work on getting to know each other. And we had decided from the very beginning to share the worst things about ourselves first. It was kind of like, let's get those out of the way so that we don't like fall in love with each other and then find out these bad things. And then you're having to make this decision. I really love this person, but we wouldn't work, you know, and all that kind of thing. And so, yeah, so that's what we do. did. So originally we were planning to get married. Okay, now remember that we met in June 2014 online. And we were planning to get married in June 2015, but live apart for 2 years while my son grew up until he was 18. And yeah, he was 15 actually when we first met. And so, you know, we just figured, okay, well, you can just like date until he's 18, or you can get married and live apart, okay, and get together like maybe once a month or something. Like that had worked. But maybe if we were married, it would work better. Anyway, so that was originally our plan. That was our plan for most of the time. And then in September, John and I drove out to California and we spent some time with my parents. And, you know, I wanted him to spend time with his grandparents because he really hadn't spent that much time with them because we moved to Tennessee when he was really little. And I wanted him to see California too. I mean, we lived in a really beautiful area of the world and a beautiful area of the state. And there was just so much, you know, we didn't live near the ocean in Tennessee. I wanted him to see the ocean and all that kind of stuff. And then he also spent, I think, about a month or so with his dad in Las Vegas. And so I was in California for 2 months, and part of that time he was in Nevada. So then the end of October, I had a speaking engagement. And so then after that, I drove and picked him up in Nevada, and then we drove home. And he drove most of the way to California and most of the way home on a permit. He did a really, really great job, by the way, even in really heavy traffic, which was terrifying for me, but he did an excellent job. Anyway, so we got home, I think about November 1st or so. And then I was going to be leaving to go to Maryland November 9th. So that's just a little bit of the background and everything. So while I was in California, though, certain things had been happening that I don't want to get into, but it just made it wiser for Bill and me to get married earlier. It would just be better for our families and everything. And so at first we moved that up to January, then we decided to move it up to December. So when I went out there, it was just a few weeks before we were actually going to get married, before he was going to come out and get me in Minnesota and take me back to Maryland, and we were going to get married. And we gave John the choice of whether he wanted to go with us or stay in Minnesota. His dad moved up to Minnesota, so we chose to stay there. So that's how that went. And of course I was disappointed, but I think, you know, maybe he made the best choice. I don't know. He's the only person who could really decide that. Anyway, so in November, Bill flew me out to Baltimore, which was the closest, you know, big airport, the Eastern Shore. I don't even know if there's any major airports on the Eastern Shore at all. So Baltimore was about an hour and a half from Still Pond, where he lived, and you had to go like down to the Bay Bridge and then back up to Annapolis and then back up to Baltimore. And sorry, it's fall and I'm having really bad allergies in my ears and my nose and everything else. Sorry. So anyway, so I got on a plane. I think my daughter took me to Minneapolis airport like 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning or something. I think I had a 5 o'clock flight. I had to get up at 2. And and also because we knew that we were getting married, Bill had said, bring the 2 biggest suitcases that you can to start moving in. That'll just be less that we have to bring on the truck. So that was wise, because I had to get rid of almost everything because we just took what we could fit in my car and in his small pickup truck to take back to Maryland when he came out to get me in Minnesota. So anyway, I flew out there, and I think there was a layover. It might have been in St. Louis, Missouri, I think. And anyway, I decided to stay on the plane. I didn't really want to get off the plane and walk around the airport. I was too excited, and I was afraid that I would miss my flight because I tend to get lost really easily. And and also because I had a really good seat. I had like the front row seat, you know, where you've got the bulkhead, so you've got leg room, which was really nice. And so anyway, so I was the only one who stayed on the plane. And so some of the flight attendants came over and they were talking to me after they did their little cleanup and stuff. And we were just standing around talking. And then the pilot came out and he was talking to us and everything. And so then they were asking me, well, what was I doing? What was I going to be doing in Maryland? And so I told them I'm meeting the man that I'm going to marry for the first time. And one of the ladies had met her husband online and everything. And they didn't really seem to think it was that weird, which was really neat. They just thought it was really, really cool. And when we arrived in Baltimore, the pilot actually announced over the loudspeaker something about, congratulations, Alyce-Kay. I hope that everything goes really well with your fiance and everything. It was just really, really neat, kind of a Cinderella kind of thing. Anyway, so we got to the airport and we had arranged to meet in baggage, which is like, that's the normal place to meet now because people can't go to the gate. And so we had gotten there half an hour early. So I thought, okay, I've got plenty of time to stop in the bathroom, freshen up my makeup and everything. So I did all that and everything, and still, you know, earlier than I was expecting him to be there and stuff. And I kind of thought it'd be really crowded and stuff. He had teased me about how, you know, when we had our first kiss, he was hiring a band of 76 trombones to be there and everybody would be applauding and all this stuff and everything. There was no one in baggage. So that was really nice because yeah, I didn't really want to have our first kiss in front of a crowd. So as I walked in, apparently he saw me, but I didn't see him. He was like around behind the carousel where the baggage comes and the bags hadn't even started coming yet. And he was just standing there. And so I kind of saw him from afar and I looked at him for a little bit just to kind of like check him out because I'd never seen him in person. You know, we had Skyped some and everything, but still that's not the same as seeing somebody in person. And so our eyes met, and so I walked over to him and he just put his arm around me and he looked at me and said hi, and then he gave me this big huge kiss. And what's really funny is I don't even remember what I was wearing, but I remember very clearly what he was wearing. And I didn't know at that time that he had a uniform. Basically ever since junior high he had been wearing, during like the fall, spring, and winter, he would wear khaki pants and a button-down shirt, long sleeve. And during the summer, he would wear khaki shorts and a polo shirt. Actually, I do think that he had told me about that when we were talking on the phone one time, but it didn't really register. And anyway, so I didn't know that this was the uniform that he was wearing. And the shirt that he was wearing was actually different from any of his other shirts because most of his shirts were solid. I think pretty much all of his shirts were solid. Maybe he had one that was like a pinstripe. And then this one was like a purple and blue kind of pastel colors, plaid sort of. It was really nice. Anyway, it looked really good on him. And so we waited for my luggage and we got it. And then we, let's see, we went out to the truck and, you know, we're just like talking 500 miles a minute because, you know, we had talked, we seriously, we counted more than 10,000 email threads. Okay. So this was like one email, one that we're counting is like lots and lots of replies back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we figured that we spent at least 100 hours on the phone every month while we were dating or courting or whatever you want to call it, not to mention all of our text messages and Skyping and stuff, which we didn't Skype very much. I mean, I think maybe we Skyped like 3 times or something altogether. I'm not sure. And anyway, so we had spent a lot of time getting to know each other. We really, really knew each other, and we had not run out of things to talk about because we just talked and talked and talked and talked while we were driving. So we went down to Annapolis, which I think is about half an hour or so. And we had decided that we were going to stop at Trader Joe's. And we had made a list of what we needed for our meals for the week and, you know, the toiletries that I needed and stuff that I didn't bring on the plane because I brought stuff for moving in. And so, yeah, so we stopped at Trader Joe's and it was a Sunday and it was really busy in Trader Joe's. You couldn't push a cart around in there. So Bill would go like to the end of an aisle and I'd run in and pick up the things that we needed and bring them back to the cart and then go to wherever the next aisle was and stuff. But there were all these men, because I mean, we're talking Annapolis, okay, so Naval Academy and all that stuff. There were all these men in their dress whites. Really nice, really nice. I was very impressed with Maryland. And so then after we went to Trader Joe's, we stopped at Sandy Point, which is a beach right by the Bay Bridge, which goes across the Chesapeake. You know, you have to understand the Chesapeake is like 250 or 200 miles from north to south. I mean, it's a humongous bay. I think it's the biggest estuary in the world. Not sure, but I think that's what it is. So you can't see the whole bay at one time. And the Bay Bridge is kind of, sort of the dividing line between where it's really salt water and where it's fresh water. There's fresh water that comes down from the Susquehanna, as well as some other feeder rivers and creeks and stuff. But then there's also a lot of ocean water that comes in, salt water that comes in from the Atlantic Ocean. And so there's south of the Bay Bridge, there are jellyfish. But north of the Bay Bridge, I'm pretty sure it's like right north of the Bay Bridge, there aren't any jellyfish because it's not salty enough. So there's just like that real difference there. And the Bay Bridge, I think, is like 5 miles across. It is like one of the narrowest places. So, I mean, they needed a narrow place to build a bridge, right? And so, yeah, so we sat there for quite a while and we talked and just enjoyed the nice weather and enjoyed being together. And I just remember, and he probably felt the same way, but I just remember just staring at him because I knew him so well, but I didn't know his physical, I didn't know, I knew what he looked like. I'd seen pictures, we had Skyped and everything, but it's still not the same as being in person. And so just being in person, I was just like looking at him so much because it was just like trying to get used to him, but we felt very comfortable together. We put his arm around me, we held hands and everything else. It all felt very just natural. And so then after we decided, okay, well, it's time to go home and everything. And I was staying at his house for the week. And so we went across the Bay Bridge, we drove up, he gave me kind of a tour as we were driving and everything. And the Eastern Shore is just gorgeous. And when I say Eastern Shore, we mean Eastern Shore of the Chesapeake. That's that whole peninsula that hangs down that has Delaware, part of Maryland, part of Virginia. So they call it the Delmarva Peninsula, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia Peninsula. And it's called the Eastern Shore because it's on the Eastern Shore of the Chesapeake. And so just, really, really beautiful. The Kent County where we lived was the breadbasket of the colonies. It's where the farms were. I mean, there were farms all over the colonies, but there were almost all farms there, and with some very small towns, and just beautiful. There are farms that have been there since the 1600s. It's just gorgeous. So yeah, so that was November 9th. And so that was, when we first met, and I came in and it was like Eli knew me. He had, his dog, he had heard my voice so much and everything. And we were just like pals from the beginning. It was just wonderful. And then his cat, Miss Pinky, was a little standoffish, but that's just kind of how she always was. And she was friendly to me, almost as friendly as she was to Bill. So it was just like, yeah, it was just like everything clicked and it was going to be great. And we didn't have any doubts before we met or anything, but that was just kind of still like a confirmation that you kind of have to go through. And so anyway, yeah, that was neat. So anyway, so part of the reason I wanted to talk about this, I didn't want to say this at the beginning, but 2 years ago, which was just a few months after Bill died, I had actually gotten to where I was doing fairly well. My parents had been with me for 2 months, and then my uncle died and they needed to go take care of my aunt who had dementia. And so they left, and they had been with me for 2 months and really, really helped a lot and everything. And I was doing okay. Of course I was crying a lot and, sad and everything, but I wouldn't say that I was like really, really depressed. And then the reminder, the memory on Facebook came up for November 9th, or maybe even for today, getting ready to go, about the first time that we met. And it took me by surprise. I hadn't really been thinking about anniversaries like that. And so I ended up spending a couple months, maybe 3 months, pretty much in bed. I would get up in the morning and teach my classes and take care of my animals, and then I'd go to bed, pull the covers over my head, read or watch something or just sleep, mostly cry. And last year I did okay, but it still was really hard. So I thought maybe this year, if I shared some of this with you guys and talked through it and remembered it all as just really, really good memories, that might really help. I'm doing so much better this year. July, when he died, was kind of hard this year until the anniversary of his death. And then that's when I was really expecting it to be hard, and it wasn't. I just felt like it was a turning point, and things have just been a lot better since then. I feel like I'm finally starting to have a life. You don't really move on. It's like I've heard people say you don't move on, you move through. And that's true, because I'll never leave him behind, you know. Once you've had somebody like that in your life, they're just always going to be there. You don't want them to be gone. And yeah, it's just how it is. And so I just wanted to record these really good memories. And hopefully I'll record more too. I don't know. We'll just see how I feel about it. But I wanted to make sure that all that I had recorded wasn't just this really depressed stuff from after he died. And I wanted to share good memories with you all. So anyway, thank you so much for listening and letting me share this with you. And I love you all. Bye-bye.